just announced that WNBA TV ratings are down more than 50% since Caitlin Clark's injury. And it was also reported that the Indiana Fever television viewership is also down over 53%. Now, I know a lot of us were expecting some sort of dip since Caitlin Clark has been out with injury, but I don't think all of us were expecting the entire viewership of the entire.
The WNBA is in a free fall. Since Caitlin Clark was forced off the court, the league has imploded in spectacular fashion. New reports confirm that league-wide television ratings have plummeted by over 50%. Her own team's viewership has been cut in half. The sold-out arenas that were making headlines just weeks ago have turned into ghost towns, and the unprecedented hype that surrounded the sport has vanished overnight. But this isn't just about one player's injury. This catastrophic collapse is exposing a much darker truth the league has been desperately trying to hide. A story of jealousy, incompetence, and a crisis that was boiling just beneath the surface.
That the WNBA, that Kathy Engelbert saw some of the ratings that I'm about to show you now and said, hey, Indiana Fever, can you do us a favor? Can you do us a solid? Can you just tease a Caitlin Clark return, kind of boost these up a little bit? Can you just dangle a Caitlin Clark return in front of the fans' faces, try to boost these ratings up a little bit? There was one matchup that this league can consistently rely on to produce massive views.
To understand the scale of this disaster, you have to look at the data, and it is nothing short of a bloodbath. It was recently announced that WNBA television ratings have plummeted by over 50% since Caitlin Clark was sidelined. Her team, the Indiana Fever, once the hottest ticket in all of sports, saw their individual viewership crater by a staggering 53%. Just let that sink in. This isn't a minor dip or a statistical blip. It's a complete system failure. Weeks ago, any game Clark played was a national event. Her matchup against the Chicago Sky drew over 2 million viewers, numbers the league hadn't seen in over 2 decades.
Shocker! Imagine my surprise. Just imagine my surprise when Uncle Casey found out that the WNBA is struggling to maintain their ratings without Caitlin Clark. To make matters worse, and this is something I have definitely noticed in the last 3 or 4 weeks, especially since the All-Star game, the WNBA seems to be struggling to maintain.
Now, those same playoff games, which should be the league's premier showcase, are struggling to hold a fraction of that audience. It's like a Hollywood blockbuster suddenly being out-earned by an obscure black-and-white film from the 1950s. The sudden violent drop proves that the Caitlin Clark effect wasn't just helping the league grow, it was the only thing keeping the entire structure from collapsing. The league sold its soul for a single star, and now they're facing the consequences of building their entire empire on what turned out to be incredibly fragile ground. But these shocking numbers are just a symptom. To understand the real disease, you have to look at what was happening on the court long before the injury.
What comes to my mind is gratitude. There's an incredible level of gratitude that should be accorded to this young lady with what she did for the sport.
How was the attendance for Team USA in the Olympics? What would it have been like if Caitlin Clark was playing on that team? Remember the first game? Look at this right here. National broadcast viewership. What are we talking about here? 1,000, what is that? 1.219? Is that the number? And the game afterwards got 485,000. So the Fever in their game against the Minnesota Lynx was 1.219.
Long before she was forced to the bench, the basketball court had become a war zone, and Caitlin Clark was the primary target. Game after game, she was treated less like a generational talent and more like a human crash test dummy. This wasn't just tough defense. It felt personal, almost vindictive. We all saw the infamous hip check from Chennedy Carter, a non-basketball play that sent a clear message. We saw her get blindsided by cheap shots away from the ball. Defenders were relentless, making it seem as though their game plan was not just to stop her from scoring, but to inflict physical punishment. And through it all, the officiating, which should have been her last line of defense, was bafflingly inconsistent, if not outright negligent.
Black superstars should thank their lucky stars For the record ratings, Caitlin Clark is detonating, even if new fans are mostly white fans. It doesn't matter what color eyeballs are. But the other day, I must admit, it hit me like Katie Bell Henderson telling me that's enough. I told myself it's not racist.
The referees seem to have two different rule books, one for the other 9 players on the floor, and one for Caitlin Clark. A hard shove that would be a flagrant foul in one possession would be completely ignored in the next. They swallowed their whistles as she was thrown into the scorer's table, creating an environment where the league's most valuable asset was left completely unprotected. This chaos didn't just put her career at risk, it made the games themselves a frustrating, often unwatchable product. Her star power was a powerful distraction, a bright light that blinded new fans to the flawed and often chaotic product on the floor. Now that the light is gone, everyone can finally see the mess that was left behind. And it turns out the aggression on the court was just a reflection of a much deeper conflict brewing behind the scenes.
WNBA has a problem, and that problem is Caitlin Clark not playing in WNBA games. Now, what all does this affect? The ratings are plummeting. Guys, there's ratings for a couple of these games.
The uncomfortable truth is, the WNBA was a league divided long before Clark arrived. While fans, the media, and sponsors celebrated her, a quiet but powerful resentment was simmering among some veteran players. You could see it in their backhanded compliments during interviews and hear it in their public comments. A subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, resistance to the rookie who had instantly become the undisputed face of their league. This internal friction inevitably spilled onto the court, manifesting as that hyper-aggressive, borderline dirty play. It wasn't just about competition for some, it felt like an attempt to put the newcomer in her place.
Trend that the WNBA is excited about. That's a trend that Kathy Engelbert would say, hey, Fever, hey, Lynn Dunn, hey, Kelly, hey, Amber, can you guys start dangling that Caitlin Clark return like you used to do? You know, before Caitlin Clark gave a statement and you guys were hands off. Can you guys, just string them along a little bit more? We want to get these ratings back up.
Then, as if to pour gasoline on the fire, another of the league's biggest and most marketable personalities, Angel Reese, abruptly left her team mid-season. Her shocking departure sent tremors through the sport, fueling the growing narrative of a league in complete turmoil. It was a sign that something was deeply wrong with the culture. When one of your other top rookies decides to just walk away, and your biggest star is being systematically targeted on the court, it points to a culture crisis that runs far deeper than a simple injury. It suggests the very foundation of the league is unstable and riddled with conflict.
Indiana against the Chicago Sky. Right after that game, they opened an investigation once again into the fans, where they found nothing, but the damage had already been done at that point. If some of these things happen just one time here and there, or there's one certain media personality who's just always saying these kind of things, then whatever. I feel like fans as a whole can be like, okay, whatever, this person is just a hater. But this is something that has happened over and over and over again. And over time, it starts chipping away at how much you're going to actually care and want to support an organization if they continue to.
While the drama unfolded on television screens, a different, more haunting story was being told inside the arenas, the sound of silence. The packed stadiums and electric atmospheres that defined the start of the season vanished almost overnight. Where there were once sold-out crowds and waiting lists for tickets, there are now vast oceans of empty seats, row after empty row. The league's social media accounts continue to post glossy hype videos promoting thrilling playoff matchups, but the fans in the comments section are quick to expose the lie.
I mean, it's embarrassing. It is embarrassing what you guys have done. And then people are catching on to your tactics. You got the people on Twitter catching on to your tactics. Like, look at this right here. Look at this right here. They say ESPN didn't want to show the ratings were down from WNBA.
They post raw, unfiltered photos and videos from inside the venues, showing near-empty lower bowls and deserted upper decks. This stark contrast between the league's polished marketing and the grim, empty reality has become a running joke online. The energy, the hype, the entire grassroots movement that Clark had single-handedly built has completely evaporated into thin air. The league is now left with a hollowed-out product, a ghost of what was promised just a few months ago, and their response to this crisis has been even more alarming. Faced with this undeniable crisis of viewership and attendance, the league and the Indiana Fever seem to have resorted to a desperate, almost deceptive ploy. Official injury updates on Clark have been mysteriously and consistently vague. Insiders and reporters have noted how the team, and by extension the league, seems to be intentionally dangling the possibility of her imminent return like a carrot on a stick. Every questionable status on the injury report, every carefully leaked clip of her taking practice shots, feels less like a transparent medical update and more like a calculated tease. It's a strategy designed to keep disillusioned fans from tuning out completely, giving them just enough hope to buy a ticket or watch one more game. This is a short-term gamble that reveals a terrifying lack of faith in their own product. Instead of using this opportunity to promote the other talented players and compelling storylines in the league, they are clinging to the ghost of their injured star. It's a silent but powerful confession of their complete and utter dependency on one person. And at the very top of this crumbling empire sits the commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, who appears to be governing from an entirely different reality. While ratings plummet and arenas empty out, she continues to give interviews talking about positive momentum and the incredible growth of the league. It is a masterclass in corporate denial and doublespeak. Listening to her public statements is like watching the captain of the Titanic praise the ship's beautiful interior design as it sinks to the bottom of the ocean. She dismisses valid, urgent criticisms about player safety and poor officiating with generic, pre-packaged statements about reviewing our protocols and navigating headwinds. There is no accountability, no urgency, and no public acknowledgement of the five-alarm fire that is currently burning down her league. This profound disconnect between the leadership's narrative and the on-the-ground reality is perhaps the most infuriating part of the entire fiasco. The league isn't just in trouble, it's being led by people who refuse to even admit there's a problem. This catastrophic failure of leadership becomes painfully obvious when you compare the WNBA's situation to how other major sports leagues operate. Take the NFL, for example. Star quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes are treated like priceless artifacts, protected by a fortress of rules. A defender so much as breathing too hard on him will draw an immediate flag for roughing the passer. The league understands a simple, ruthless business principle. You must protect your stars at all costs because they are the assets who sell the tickets, the jerseys, and the multi-billion-dollar television deals. The NBA does the exact same thing for its high-flying scorers. Yet in the WNBA, their golden goose, the rookie who single-handedly delivered them more mainstream attention than they've had in their entire history, was thrown to the wolves. The league stood by and did nothing as she was battered, bruised, and targeted night after night. This wasn't just a simple oversight, it was a colossal, unforgivable failure of strategy and vision. It forces us to ask a chilling question: did the league simply fail to protect Caitlin Clark, or on some level did they let it happen, too afraid to upset the veteran players who secretly resented her meteoric rise? In the end, the story of the WNBA's 2024 season is a modern sports tragedy. The Caitlin Clark phenomenon should have been the league's greatest blessing, the gift that propelled them into a new era of popularity and profitability. Instead, it became a curse. Her unbelievable talent brought with it a blinding, unforgiving spotlight that the league was simply not prepared for. And now that her light has been temporarily extinguished, that same spotlight is exposing every crack, every flaw, and every deep-seated failure that the organization has tried to paper over for years. The collapsed ratings, the chaotic on-court product, the internal division, and the out-of-touch leadership, it was all there, hiding just beneath the surface. Caitlin Clark didn't create these problems, but her sudden absence has revealed them to the entire world. And now, the league is left to face a terrifying, legacy-defining question. What do you do when your one-in-a-billion savior becomes a living, breathing reminder of your own spectacular failure?